Okay.
Recording in progress.
Thank you, Tracy. Thank you, Michael. Okay, so that other question, that's all set. And you, Mark, you said you had one more question?
Yes, one more question.
Go ahead.
This item, I remember coming here 3 or 4 years ago, and I raised the same question, and this line item is still being carried. It's fire hydrant rental, $549,000. I'm a site guy. I work for a heavy highway contractor. I know all about water mains. I know what they cost to put in. I know the crew and everything, pipe, everything about it. Why are we paying $500,000 in rental for whatever this is? Can put the water. I mean, if you don't have any hydrant service, then run a water main up. You know how far you can go for $2 million at 4 years of this to get some hydrants in there? I mean, what is it? Go ahead.
This is for the hydrant rentals, and the way that the Public Utility Regulatory Authority allows Connecticut Water Company to charge is by the amount of water capacity they can bring to those 500, I don't even know how many it is we have in town. So it is.
Where is it, on the north end of town?
All over town.
It's the whole town.
Well, they're pretty much everywhere where Connecticut Water Company is.
Oh, that's a Connecticut Water Company deal.
Yeah.
Now, over in Branford or anywhere else
Yeah,
like
you've got
that,
the
where they
regional
have
water.
hydrants all over the place, they don't charge the town zilch, is that correct?
No, they get charged as well.
They get charged well?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah,
For hydrant rental, wow.
Well, they're essentially paying for a guaranteed water pressure.
yeah, that's exactly.
That's the other thing.
So we have 397 hydrants, 313,378 linear feet.
Yeah, but
And that's how we're charged.
every town has water mains in them, and once the water company pays to put those things in, other than the maintenance of them, just like gas lines and everything, that seemed to me like an illegal charge. You know, you should try to. You got some kind of a way you can fight that, or go talk to our legislators. And
Yeah.
what are we doing here? They're
Connecticut-
getting paid from all the people that have water services, drink water, and they charge $100 a month now, or 60, or whatever it is. There's your income. What are you getting these towns for hydrants for?
That's a question for the Public Utility Regulatory Authority.
Yeah,
As a
you're right.
regulated entity, like the electric companies, et cetera, they have a right to a guarantee.
How long has that been going on? For forever?
Yeah, yeah.
Wow. Okay.
It's a pretty good racket.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Anyone virtually? Any hands raised? I do not see any hands raised.
Thankfully.
Okay.
Am I dismissed?
First Selectman Howie, thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you for tolerating. This is the second time you've had to sit through that, most of that presentation.
It's a pleasure as always. Okay. We still have an agenda item of public forum. We're still on agenda item number 1. What I wanted to do, you've heard a lot of numbers. I've done this every year during budget season to try to summarize where we are. First Selectman Hoey actually alluded to the mill rate. I'm going to talk about it very quickly because I know people are kind of curious. So I did some analysis, and I'm also just going to present some facts from what we heard tonight. Number 1, from the Board of Education. The request for their budget is $68,766,172, which is a 4.78% increase over last year. For the town, including operating and capital, their request is $35,733,709, which represents a 5.04% increase. Debt service, the request is $10,167,139, which is a decrease of 0.95%. If you take the debt service and the operating together, for the town side, it is a 3.65% increase combined. That is on the expenditure side. If we go to the revenue side, non-tax revenue, the request or the projected amount is $7,852,657, which, as we heard, represents a 12.67% increase over revenues, non-tax revenues last year, which is $883,150. This would indicate, or this would mean that on the property taxes, the request would need to be, for the revenue, $106,814,363, which represents a 3.76% increase. Okay. So we've expenditure side, revenue side. How the mill rate, let's talk a little bit about the mill rate. The adjusted grand list was presented, and as a result of the revaluation that we all have experienced of property in the fall of 2022, I won't say the number, but I will indicate, as we heard, that the total net taxable grand list increase is 32.96%. The projected mill rate with the grand list at that increase, if everything holds as is, no changes from what you heard tonight, the projected mill rate would be 25.92%, which is a 7.33 point mill rate decrease from what it is now, which is 33.25. That is a 22.04% decrease in the mill rate. So, what does that mean to all of you? It should be noted that this mill rate decrease I just mentioned, due to revaluation of property, does not necessarily indicate a tax decrease. And in fact, if the grand list increased 33%, as we all heard, there is a more than likely chance that your property value or assessment increased as well. So, the quick math to do for fiscal year 23-24, got this from the first selectman just to make sure it was easy math. The best way to determine your taxes and your impact for this budget, based on tonight's numbers presented, is to take your old assessed value, which is based on the 2017 reval, and multiply that times 0.03325. So that 3325 is the mill rate. You're just doing the simple math of 0.03325 multiplied by your 2017 reval, which is your old assessed value. You take the new assessed value as of October 1st of 22, and you multiply that times the new mill rate that is projected, that would be established. That would most likely be at 0.02592. That will give you the indication of where your taxes stand next year. That is the simple math. So the grand list rebalanced because of the reval, and because the grand list went up, it's always the grand list went up, your assessments went up, but now you've just heard the mill rate dropped 22%. So there's a rebalancing that goes on. So just because you heard a decrease does not mean that you get a tax decrease. It's all going to be dependent on how your assessment balances out with how the grand list and the mill rate get figured. Okay. I know that's really, yeah, try to simplify that, but so far, so good. And I have lots of people in this room, by the way, that will correct me if I'm wrong. There's a quick comparative note that I wanted to add. And I admit I asked Mary Jane this to do the math, so you're going to confirm this. I'm going to actually confirm another number. We had the reval, so that definitely skews everything and everyone's perception. Usually we come into these meetings, we talk about what the tax increase or the mill rate increase is going to be. Had the grand list increased the same amount as last year and there was no revaluation, I believe that amount after the Board of Tax Appeal Assessments, I believe it was 2.18 that the grand list increased last year. Mary Jane, could you confirm that? 2.18 after Board of Assessment Appeals, a grand list increase.
Last year or this year?
Last year. Had the grand list increased the same amount as last year? So I'm just putting the percentage out there. If it increased the same amount as last year, and there was no reval, and I just looked at last year's grand list increase to see what the number was, it was 2.18. The mill rate that would be estimated based on these budgets would be 33.73, or a 1.43% increase in the mill rate. That's just a comparative note if there was no rebound. Finally, there were bond questions. How do you do on that? Does that make sense before I go to bonding? Okay. Bonding, what we heard this evening, for the Board of Education, they have requested a bond authorization of $1,331,260. I won't go into details, but that includes the Baldwin Middle School gym floor replacement, fixtures and furnishings at 595, which will be the new administrative offices, or relocation of administrative offices into an existing building. The Guilford High School tennis courts, increase of $300,000 due to the inflation that has occurred, we all know, in the construction industry, and design services for future projects. On the town side, the request is $5,987,668 for a bond authorization, which includes 7 different items. And I'll just read them real quick, just to refresh everyone. Communications infrastructure, Hubbard Road pedestrian improvements, road improvements, ambulance replacement and remounting, engine pumper replacement, police vehicle port and storage, and backhoe replacement. Those are the 7 items. I believe that I've covered a recap of everything that you heard tonight. And this is how we'll start Thursday evening. I will do the same recap so that it refreshes everyone's memory of what the numbers are. And then we will go into deliberation and discussion about the budgets. Okay. Item number 2. On the Board of Finance side, does anybody have anything to add while we're here before Thursday?
I have many questions, as you know.
Yes. Have you had anything that has not been answered out of all of the questions?
Didn't realize I was late in the game till I saw your email.
Yep.
But a lot of questions have been answered, and I'm very thankful for Linda and Mary Jane, who probably did most of those answers, so I appreciate it.
Okay.
But there's probably a few out there if you can find some stragglers.
Okay. All I was going to ask, if there's any burning question that needs to be asked right now by a Board of Finance member, or entertain 1 or 2. Other than that, we'll go forward on Thursday with questions. Okay?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yep.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, please.
To the best of our understanding, we've answered all the questions that you've sent to the finance director. If there are those that have not been answered, could you please send them along to us, and we'll address them starting tomorrow morning?
I will say, and I believe that is the case, and I will say that on the Board of Education side, there may actually be a few stragglers because there were a number of questions that were asked fairly late in the process. So if that's possible, great. Otherwise, maybe just be prepared for Thursday night. That's all we would ask, I guess. Okay? I think that's fair.
There's just a couple on the town side that I think got missed. I'll send them.
Yeah, please do.
Okay.
Yeah.
That'd be
Yeah,
fine. Thank you. Okay. Item number 2. Public forum. Anybody still left? There are a couple people still left. Thank you for sticking with us. I really, on behalf of the Board of Finance, appreciate anybody who's here in person and anybody who's virtual. If anybody has anything to comment on in public forum.
I just have to comment how wonderful the technology is to be able to have taxpayers in the town participate when they might not have been able to before because childcare issues or things like that. This is similar to when we were all virtual during COVID. There was a significant increase in public participation. So I personally think it's wonderful, that I thank you all for hanging in there with us.
Veronica, I couldn't say any better. If there's one, I've heard this a couple times, if there's one good thing about COVID,
Yeah.
is this has happened. We went 3 years virtually, and prior to those virtual years, we were in the big room downstairs, and you had to be here. Otherwise, you had to wait until you saw it on tape. And there's nothing wrong with that, having the record and having it replayed over and over and over again on GCTV. I think it's incredibly important to do that. But having the live component, it's having the best, it's the best of both worlds right now. And yes, I do appreciate the fact that the town is invested in this to run concurrently with being able to have a record and have it taped and being put on GCTV. So yes, Veronica, thank you for mentioning that's a really good point.
Thank you for those comments, Mr. Chairman. One thing that we're going to explore is how do we extend that capacity to the large room downstairs where we traditionally hold our largest meetings. And normally, we are in that room for this very meeting. And then particularly as it relates to meetings where people have to vote, because we have not yet devised a system where they can vote online. So I think we need to explore the opportunities down there. One of the challenges with that room is it's used for recreation. And devices like this and screens, et cetera, with balls being flown around and thrown around could be challenging.
Acoustics are an issue in that room too.
Yeah, true.
There's a lot of challenges, but
Yeah.
this worked pretty darn well.
It does.
So,
So thank you for those comments. This is money
Thank
well spent.
okay, last chance public forum. Okay, before we adjourn, just a last reminder that the budget workshop number 1.
Wait a minute, do you want to mention that you received an email?
Oh, gosh. Thank you. Yes, thank
So
you.
you're right, we all corrected you.
Excellent. I love being corrected. Okay. We did receive one email from a member of the public. I'll read it real quick. It's very short. Larry Rizzolo, 24 Long Hill Farm, wrote, I regret I am unable to attend Tuesday's public hearing and wish to support the line item for the care and maintenance of Lake Quanapog. I frequently row or paddle on the lake from late March to late October and can attest to the need to keep invasive water plants at bay. I applaud the town's efforts these past several years to preserve this gem of our community. Beyond my personal enjoyment of this fine resource, I find I am not alone. Rarely am I the only one on the lake. The boat launch parking lot is often crowded. Clearly, many like me do not live on the lake, but enjoy using it for boating, fishing, and swimming. Please maintain this line item of the budget. Thank you. Thank you. And thank you, Mr. Rizzolo, for your comments. And all those that have asked questions and made comments tonight. Very much appreciated. Okay, so now really before we adjourn, a last reminder that budget workshop number 1 will be held in a hybrid format just like tonight, in the same room. And it will be on Thursday night, March 9th at 7:30 p.m. Public forum is on the agenda before and after the board's workshop proceedings and our likely vote on moving a proposed budget forward to voters. Should the Board of Finance not vote a budget forward to town referendum on Thursday night due to any number of circumstances that can occur, one year it was actually, I think there was no heat in here. I think that was last year. We were going to have it, and we ended up going virtual because the heat wasn't working. So that's where your tax dollars are going, right? There will be a second virtual workshop or hybrid workshop scheduled, if needed, on Monday, March 13th, and it will also be at 7:30, same format as tonight. With that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you, everyone,
coming
for
out.
joining.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Graziano.